One of the hardest things about parenting is staying calm when our children aren't. And I truly understand why. When we discover dishonesty, emotions can rise quickly. We want answers. We want accountability. We want our children to understand that honesty matters. But over the years, both as a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, I've learned something that surprised me. Children rarely become more honest when they become more afraid. In fact, many times, emotional intensity produces the exact opposite of what we're hoping for. Instead of openness, we often get defensiveness. Instead of honesty, we often get hiding. And that doesn't mean our children are bad, it means they're human. In this video, I want to talk about why calm responses often open doors that pressure closes, and why this shift matters so much. We're trying to teach honesty and build character. And by the way, if lying has become a struggle in your home, I've created a free guide called How to Handle Lying in Children. I'll leave the link below. Fear often makes children defensive. I've noticed something both in the classroom and in life. Children who are already nervous often become more defensive when emotions escalate, and adults aren't very different. Most of us don't think clearly when we feel threatened, and I've seen this happen many times during recess, with disagreements, group projects. One child will insist they didn't say something hurtful, another child quickly will blame a classmate. And before long, everyone was defending themselves and no one wanted to take responsibility. What I've learned is that fear often makes children focus more on protecting themselves rather than telling the truth. Children are still developing emotionally. They're learning how to handle embarrassment, disappointment, guilt, and responsibility. And when these emotions feel overwhelming, self protection often takes over. Understanding that doesn't excuse dishonesty, but it does help explain why pressure frequently makes things worse. And I think that's important because children need leadership more than they need to fear us. They need adults who can remain steady when emotions are running high. Because when fear takes over, honesty gets buried underneath it. Emotional intensity often produces defensiveness instead of honesty. One thing that I've learned is that calm doesn't mean weak. And calm certainly doesn't mean that honesty doesn't matter. In fact, I think calm is one of the strongest responses we can offer. I remember a student who accidentally damaged a classroom supply and another child was blamed. Feelings were hurt and everyone was upset. And it would have been easy to push harder and demand immediate answers. But after some time had passed, the student quietly came back and admitted what had happened, and that taught me something important. Sometimes children need a little room to gather their courage because telling the truth can feel vulnerable. Children are still learning how to handle those uncomfortable emotions. And I've noticed that when children know the relationship is secure, honesty often becomes easier. Not because accountability disappears, but because fear begins to lose some of its power. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about truth and grace. Healthy homes need both. Truth without grace often creates fear, and grace without truth ignores responsibility. But when truth and grace work together, children slowly learn that making a mistake doesn't mean they've lost our love. And that doesn't mean every child will immediately confess, and it certainly doesn't mean they will always respond perfectly. None of us do. But calm creates something pressure often cannot. It creates space. Space for honesty, space for growth, space for relationships. So remember that calm responses create space for honesty. As a leader, you think beyond the moment And I think this is where our mindset matters so much, because honestly, it's easy to become consumed with the moment. We want the truth right now. We want the problem solved immediately, and understand that. But over the years, I've learned that leadership thinks beyond the moment. Leadership thinks about the kind of person we're helping a child become. And I've seen students initially deny saying something or doing something, only to quietly return later and admit what they have done. And those moments taught me something important. Children often need accountability and hope, not humiliation, not fear. Hope invites growth. And that's true for all of us. None of us become people of integrity overnight. Character is built over time through conversations, mistakes, opportunities to make things right, and adults who continue showing up with both truth and grace. And that doesn't mean there are no consequences. Responsibility matters, accountability matters, honesty matters. But we can hold children accountable without damaging the relationship. And I think that's one of the most important mind changing attitudes that we can have. If my goal is simply getting a confession, I may push harder. But if my goal is teaching honesty, I begin thinking like a leader. And leaders think beyond today's mistake. They think about tomorrow's character. Because leadership focuses on long-term character, not immediate compliance. So, if you've ever felt frustrated because your child seemed to shut down, the harder you pushed, don't lose hope. Most of us have been there. Over the years, I've learned that calm responses don't guarantee immediate honesty, and they certainly don't mean ignoring the behavior, but calm often creates something that pressure cannot. It creates space for truth, growth, and relationships, and that's where character is often formed. None of us respond perfectly every time. I certainly haven't. But we can continue growing right alongside our children. And over time, those ordinary moments become opportunities to teach integrity. Because our goal is bigger than winning an argument. Our goal is helping children become people who love truth. And that kind of character is built slowly. And if you'd like more help, I've created a free guide called How to Handle Lying in Children Without Shame or Power Struggles. And I'll leave a link below. Also, if you've ever wondered whether staying calm means avoiding accountability, you'll want to watch the next video. Because next, we're going to talk about the difference between loving leadership and emotional intimidation. Understanding that difference changed the way I thought about correction. I'll see you there.